I need to be the visionary and the leader. I should not be doing the individual tasks within the business. And that's how I'm going to grow.
Welcome to the Fully Funded Show. Whether you're a capital raiser, deal sponsor, fund manager, or LP investor, we've got the insights you need for investing success. Join Sam Silverman each week for expert interviews, insider tips, and strategies to fully fund your ventures. Let's go!
All right, we are back with the Fully Funded Show. This time we're with Elijah Brown, who is a friend and partner of mine as well. So Elijah, where are you calling in from right now? I know you're usually traveling the world pretty much.
Honolulu. So we moved to Hawaii about 4 months ago.
Cool. And before we get into your total background and stuff, I know you have a bit of an interesting story and kind of looking at your just personal life and kind of how you moved around and how you've traveled. So prior to getting into all the cool stuff you're doing in terms of real estate and raising capital and your businesses, but yeah, kind of dive into what your life's looked like the last few years and kind of what drove that decision.
We were living in Los Angeles, hating it there because it's a horrible place to be. I don't know if any of you live there or are listening, but we did not like it. So we actually bought a Mercedes Sprinter van, an empty cargo van, and we spent 2 years renovating it and turning it into our dream home on wheels. This is my girlfriend and I. And we spent an entire year traveling. We did the whole Baja Peninsula and then a bunch of national parks in the U.S. as well. And then we recently sold the van and moved to Hawaii.
Cool. So what was that like, right? Going from, because were you still in the corporate world at the time or had you made the jump yet? And we can start with your background here soon too, but just fill us in kind of what that was like and what drove the decision and what the experience was like in doing it. I'm sure some people who are listening, who are in the corporate world and have the digital nomad, itch at times too. Just share some more insight as to what that looked like.
The idea came while I was still working in the corporate world, and we started work while I was still a W-2 employee. And then the project took 2 years. So it was in the middle there that I ended up transitioning to working for myself. But it was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. At first, it started off as a short bus. We wanted to do a schoolie, because we had seen it on TV and on YouTube, and we actually drove out to a school bus festival in Arizona, and it was just a great time. But we decided to settle on the Sprinter van for resale value and because it fits in a parking spot, which is actually really important. So we had a great time with that. Actually, when you and I met, I was flying in from Cabo because our van was parked on the beach in Cabo, and I had to fly to Salt Lake City to go to the conference and to meet you. And was like, where are you from? I was like, well, today I live in Cabo, but tomorrow I'll be in another location. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely something I think a lot of people have at least once thought about in terms of, going the nomad route. So now that we got sidetracked there a little bit, can you give us some background on, yourself and kind of what you're doing today as well?
Sure. Well, I'll go back to kind of the beginning of my real estate journey. I thought I was going to go into investment banking and hedge funds, and quickly realized that I wanted nothing to do with that world, high stress and long hours. And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos and stumbled across a few important channels. One was Phil Pustajowski, Chris Crone, Graham Stephan, Bigger Pockets. And I realized that what I really wanted to do was own rental properties. And so I made a decision while I was still in college, this was in 2016, that I was going to go out and buy my first rental property. But I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any credit because I wasn't working at the time. And so I had to figure out how to overcome those two obstacles to get into my first rental. Well, I ended up partnering with my cousin and my best friend, and they helped me come up with the down payment money and credit to get the loan, and we went and bought our first single-family house in Orlando, Florida. That was the beginning. We did that a bunch of times, bringing in new friends and partners and coworkers along the way, and then I eventually started partnering on much larger deals with much larger companies and playing a smaller role on those teams.
So, in your experience, I think a lot of people make that transition, right? Where they go buy single family houses, they realize for whatever reason that it's just not going quick enough. It's too much of a lift. There's a multitude of reasons that people just have to move out of it. On your end, what did that transition? Well, so prior to that, the people you were finding to actually go partner with you on those deals, how do you choose to go structure it? How did you go connect with them? How did you meet them? What did it look like for you in terms of those relationships and structures?
So in the beginning, because I had no track record, no experience, I went first to friends and family. So these were, people I was in college with or people I had grown up with, family members as well. And I just pretty much told everybody who I knew what I was doing and that I was going to go buy rental properties. And I was just trying to see who would be interested. I got a job right out of college at a real estate fund, and it was a REIT. And I ended up making very close friends with the other analysts on the floor at that company. And I was able to convince a bunch of them to jump in on the deals with me there. So it really started off with just friends and family. I really didn't transition over to retail or high net worth for the first 6 years. I started off as just doing like small single family deals. I then wanted to scale up. So I started operating small multifamily flips. And then from there, I made the decision that I really didn't like being an operator anymore and switched more over to a capital allocation role in the last 2 years.
So I think let's kind of dive deeper in one of those areas too. When most people kind of think of, the capital allocation space that I'm in as well personally, they think of these huge deals they're getting involved in. You're thinking of 7 figures plus of capital going into a project. But I think a really important thing when you look at it is that going the route of, hey, finding just someone to go partner with you on a single deal, right? Like, it's not as daunting as it seems for some people, right? I think it's a way that you can go take action on it tomorrow and go find a deal and go find, you manage the deal and someone manages the money, or vice versa, right? And kind of break into the space that way. And then the transition for you into kind of small, mid-sized multifamily, like, what did that look like in that transition process? Why do you choose to go that route?
Yeah, it's really just a confidence thing, because it pretty much requires the same amount of work as doing the single family deals. And it's not really that much more of an equity commitment either. You're talking about going from needing $50,000 to $100,000 to going to like $100,000 to $300,000 for doing small multifamily for the equity component of it, depending on where you are. And so it's not that much more, but the potential is so much higher. I really wanted to get into these bigger deals, essentially just adding a couple zeros onto what I was already doing. And so that's what I did. I went from doing the single families, I did 4 of those, and then a 6-plex, and then a 5-plex, and then started getting into a bit bigger stuff, 20 to 100 unit deals.
Got it. And when looking at the transition and kind of going into the larger scale, right? Like, why did you choose to go play that, smaller role, more the equity partner type role in the bigger deals versus kind of being much more hands-on in the, small mid-sized multifamily that you were kind of targeting?
It's all about my time and my expertise. And I put a lot of thought into where can I get the best bang for my buck? And for me, that was raising capital. So I get paid the most per the amount of time that I spend when I'm raising money. I don't get that same return on doing asset management or underwriting, due diligence, all the other things that are involved with doing a deal. I make the most for the amount of time I spend when I'm raising money. So I decided I'm going to take that expertise, the thing that makes me the most, the thing that I'm good at, and I'm going to provide that role and that service to much larger operations. We're talking about getting into much bigger assets that are more stable with more professional teams. They're newer. The team has experience and stuff. It's just a less risky type of deal for my investors.
So I think that's a really important point here too. I think a lot of people in the real estate or the investing space, they want to be really okay at a lot of things, right? Like, I'm a big believer in that as well, as being like really good and focusing on one thing and one niche. You'll be worth far more both to yourself and your partners around you by being very, very good at that one thing. So when you kind of figure out that was capital raising for you and kind of focus on the investor side of the house, right? What shifts did you make in terms of your day-to-day, how you spent your time, right? How you started actually going to build a business around this? Like, what did the transition look like as you went from buying single family houses to buying mid-sized multifamily now to actually partnering up on these larger projects? Like, what steps do you take to go do that in terms of starting to build your business around it today?
So it's really all about the relationships with the operators. So I was an operator. I'm still an operator for the past 7 years. And so I kind of know what to look for. I've met a lot of people along the way. It's really all about finding the people who are going to go out and execute. They're the ones sourcing the deals, doing the initial underwriting, and then doing the work post-closing. And so making sure that they are a top-notch player and have their ducks in a row is the most important component in all of it. So my time went from relationships with brokers and trying to like close and underwrite on deals to finding the people who are going to do that role, trusting them, and then just playing my role of capital raiser and investor relations, which is a completely different business. It's just a sales role, more marketing focused. It's a lot less of the actual real estate. And that's just, what I felt I was good at, what I enjoyed doing. And so I naturally gravitated into that side of it.
Yeah, and I think it then turns the business into two components, right? One is building your list of investors, right? Building your brand, really highlighting the type of work that you're doing and attracting the right people that you want to go attract. Alternatively, the other side of it is your business really ties to picking the right jockey for the race you want to go into, right? In terms of the deals you want to get involved in. So when you kind of think of breaking those down into two components, let's talk about actually finding those partners, right? Where'd you go find them? Just because it's such a big piece of the business where, you do the right deals and the right partners, your life becomes very easy. You do the wrong deals, the wrong partners, not so much. So, going to help us understand how you vet them. I know you have a lot of, put a lot of time in the due diligence side of this house as well too.
Yeah, it's a great question. It comes up a lot. So there were two questions in there. One is how you find them. The second one was how you vet them. I'll start with the first one. So finding them, that comes down to like relationships I've been building for the past 7 to 8 years, just being in the industry, being an operator. Now, at first they were my competitors or people I looked up to, and now they're people I'm looking to partner with. Also, a lot of these sponsors, especially the ones that accept a retail level of capital like what we're bringing right now, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're all over the place. You really just have to start looking. Usually they'll find you because they're paid marketing dollars, they're paid ad dollars. They're very, very good at finding people who might be interested in doing business with them. And so you'll see a lot of their ads come up, but it really comes from just being in the game, in the social media space, talking to other people, going to the conferences and seeing who's speaking on stage. That's a huge component on it. Write down all the names of the sponsors that you see, reach out to their investor relations department, ask for their company pitch deck, and then start, having calls with them to understand their track record, how they work, all the deals that they've done and stuff like that. We've been keeping a list now for 3 to 4 years, and I've narrowed it down to about 20 or so relationships that I have that are very strong in my target markets that are now sending me deals like 30 to 60 days before they even get launched to the general public in a capital raise. And that's really like the value. That's the biggest value that I'm bringing to my investors. It's getting in on those deals really early, negotiating better terms, and then being able to essentially fill the deal up before it's even ready to go out to normal investors.
Got it. And then so when you look at, when you have a list of 20 or 30 different people you can go partner with on deals, how do you go pick who makes the most sense to go partner with? Because I think something we all have seen in this space is that when you play the capital allocation role and you do multiple deals a year, multiple deals at the same time, you want to be really cognizant of not overextending yourself in terms of commitments for capital to different partners. So when you look at who you choose to go partner with, right, how do you go do so? And how do you kind of break out your allocations with each group to make sure that you're hitting your numbers to them and also ensuring that you can bring diversity to your investors too? Yeah.
So part of that's a timing thing. So right now, like my group only has capacity to do one deal every month or every month and a half. And so to not overextend myself on my commitments and my allocations, I'm just only going to do one deal a month right now. I'm not going to take on 2 or 3 at the same time. And so that's the first component. Also making sure that I'm not totally over promising on how much capital I'm going to raise. If on my last 3 raises, I was only able to raise, $600,000 or $700,000, I'm not going to go tell the sponsor that I'm going to bring them $1 million. And the thing is, the sponsor's already like discounting what you tell them by like half. Like if you tell them you're going to bring $1 million, they're already like, cool, Elijah's bringing $500,000. But you still look like I don't want to say like a loser, but like a failure if you don't bring them what you told. It's like you didn't honor your word. And if you can tell them that you're going to bring 500 and then you bring them 500 and then you have another 100 to bring them, they're going to be like, wow, this guy's awesome. Like we want to like send him first look next time to see if he wants to invest. So part of it's a timing thing. The other part is sizing. And then I think you had another question about like how I vet these sponsors as well. For me, the biggest part is track record. And So typically I like to see 5 full cycle deals or more for emerging sponsors. Some deals that I've invested in had less, but I invested for other reasons because the other reasons were so strong that they counteracted that lack of experience. But experience, you can't really replace that. That's the most important thing.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's really similar to running a sales org, right? When you have the capital partners that you're bringing, you always have discounts each level up the ladder in terms of where I can expect that person to go land. It's a lot easier, especially to go tell someone, hey, we can't take your capital versus we're short on a deal. You have hard earnest money, you have timelines on it as well. So I think kind of making sure you're all lined up there as well is really important. But yeah, I think when you look at being a capital partner of actually hitting those numbers and communicating really well as to where you're at in the deal itself, people love the transparent side of it of, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we expect to go have, right? That forecast range, I think people really appreciate. Now, the other side of the house is when you look at kind of growing your investor list, right? Connect with new people. Like, what does it look like for you in terms of what you do to actually go build demand for new investors in your pipeline so you can go keep doing deals consistently?
So my entire lead generation strategy is on LinkedIn right now. So I really don't do much else. Okay, I go to a few events every year, and I do like in-person stuff here in Hawaii, but that's not the majority of what I'm doing. Most of what I'm doing is posting on LinkedIn, some kind of thought leadership thing, and then I'll have a link to a lead magnet, digital knowledge product, whatever you want to call it, something that hopefully provides tremendous value to whoever is reading my posts. And then when they go to download that, I get their email address. That's the main strategy that I use. I also do some outreach. I have a virtual assistant who goes to my LinkedIn sales navigator lists and then sends intro messages and connection requests. And then I'll go in later and actually have the conversations with people. But I have her to initiate those conversations. So it's twofold: the inbound with the posting and then the outbound with sending messages out.
So yeah, I think the virtual assistant piece is huge. I do the same thing as well on my end. I think it's really doable to go, one, do yourself first, then kind of work on training the virtual assistant as well to go help support you in your business in that sense, right? In terms of picking up how you speak, picking up how you act, right? So they can go filter those conversations more so, be really articulate with your
we should dive
potential
into
prospects
that
there as
deeper.
well.
I'm curious your experience with training a virtual assistant to be you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think one of the biggest things is it's not the easiest process, but you literally go pull up Zoom with this person for 1-2 hours a day for a couple of weeks in a row, right? And every single reply. And actually, when I brought mine on, so mine manages my inbox more specific to fully funded in terms of the mastermind community for potential members there. And we had a few posts that went viral in terms of demand. So I would go through with her one by one and write responses. And, sometimes you have stuff that fits into a tree, right? And if this, then that scenario. Alternatively, you have some responses and some people that you get really out of left field responses. So going through with them and actually explaining, hey, this is why we're responding this way, not just, hey, respond this way, but explaining actually why and the rationale behind it. That is really impactful when looking at help them understand. But it's a lift, right? We meet at least once a week in terms of going through responses. Every night she sends me a list of 10, 15 people that's saying, hey, if you want to go reply to these people, feel free to jump in. But over time, she's gotten better and better and better at speaking as if she was me. And I think it's really important where they have that same voice and tonality as yourself. And a lot of these answers and responses can be somewhat canned, where you're getting things that typically fit into a certain box. But beyond that is the time and effort you spend with them will pay you dividends dramatically. So if you're bringing a virtual assistant, you're listening to this, like, don't cheap out in terms of your effort upfront with this person, because the time you invest upfront will pay you dividends massively going forward. So hire good people, right? Treat them really well. But more importantly, spend time with them and invest back into them as well, as you're their livelihood in terms of providing for themselves, their families. So make sure you invest in them so they can actually have success themselves too.
Yeah, that's great. So we spent 2 to 3 months on 2 months really training outside of LinkedIn, just doing like mock conversations. And that went really well. Like, she was fantastic. Once we transitioned into LinkedIn, it became kind of like a deer in the headlights situation where it was like, oh, like I don't know how to respond. And so then it became like, okay, let's just use ChatGPT to like come up with responses. And they were so bad because ChatGPT sucks and can't come up with like real like human responses. And so we kind of got to a point where there was enough like like I want to say embarrassing responses because it was either like she was responding to like someone I already knew close, like a friend or family member, and or it was just something like totally out of left field. We got to the point where she's just sending out like pre-scripted like template intro messages now, and then if the response from the person meets a certain number of different, like if it matches exactly with a certain number of different responses, she'll provide the next response. But if not, she'll just save them for me to go in later and actually have the conversation, because that way we're not like risking losing the relationship from like an awkward response. And granted, our virtual assistant is international, and obviously like English is not the first language, and so that's also a learning curve as well. But that's that's just what has worked for us. I would love to get to the point where she is just me, or have an AI do it. But that's a different conversation and a lot riskier on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point too, right? Like there's a level of uncomfortability at times too, where you go in and it's speaking to someone right? And that conversation should be handled differently, but it's fine, right? Like it's fine when you look at that side of it too, because I think the balance there is worth it in terms of the trade-off that you have in terms of your time, right? If I had to go respond to every single person on LinkedIn or Facebook on my end, that's all I'd be able to go do. And it's just, that's not the highest, most use of my time. So when you think of what are those activities, right, that are truly worthwhile for yourself to be doing? And it's always having live conversations or content at scale. So I think it's, getting comfortable and figuring out how the best way to go operate with the situation that we have to make sure that you can still work really efficiently.
Something else I've noticed, I'm not sure if you've noticed something similar. So on posts that you make that go viral, where you have something like, leave in the comments like this word and I'll send you a link to our digital knowledge product or whatever. Those perform so much better in terms of converting LinkedIn people into leads than any of our outreach has ever done. Well, in a given month, let's say I make a post, like I could get 20 to 30 leads out of that one post if it's a good post and it goes viral. But with the outreach stuff, it's like maybe like a tenth of the success on a daily basis. And so do you think time is better spent focusing on how to make better content and then like following up on that content? Or do you really think the outreach strategy is the best way to go?
I don't think it's an either or, right? I think when you look at the content side of it, the content that scales, right? Because you're going to post that gets one impression, you're going to post that gets 200,000 impressions, right? And the level of effort may not be that different. I think the consistency piece is really important, just because some stuff, oh my God, this would be really good and nothing. And some stuff like, yeah, I'll throw it up here. We'll see what happens. And you get a ton of people. But I think the having them be able to come to you and offering them something that they want. So my take on this, when you look at the lead magnet piece of it, is what can you offer someone that they'd actually go pay for, right? What can you offer someone that they'd actually go pay, $100, $200, $300 for, where they don't mind giving you their email, right? They don't mind putting your email in. DocSend's great if you want to get the premium version of it that captures emails, right? When you look at the, that side of it. So that's what we use internally. And I think if you can go create content that people actually want, you'll have it attract the right people to you as well. But the outreach piece of it too, I don't view it as an either or type scenario, right? Where the content piece, if you can have the outreach handled from someone that is owning that for you on your behalf, and your time is then freed up to focus more on content work on the business versus in it, I think that's where you can actually get a lot of both done. So I view the outreach as much more targeted, right? The content as much more scalable. So they're both have pros and cons.
That's awesome. And for your outreach portion of it, I'm really curious, like how many back and forths do you do, or how do you know when the relationship is ready to offer them some kind of free product or make the pitch to get on your list? Like at what point is it like, wait 3 weeks worth of conversations, or is it like 3 back and forths, or is it just depends on each conversation?
I think a lot of it's a judgment call too. So I think it's usually quicker when people are looking at the fully funded side of the house, right? In terms of the mastermind community, whereas people are looking at the investor side of the house, it typically is more of a slow burn to go do that. unless they've heard you somewhere, right? Sometimes you get people saying, hey, I heard you here. I saw this here. I saw your content there, right? And that gets people, I think content gets people down the funnel much more quickly, right? Where the outreach piece can be, they know you now, right? And the content piece can be, they actually start hearing you, right? Because I think that's the biggest piece of it is you have to actually know someone to start that relationship of, okay, do I like their content? Do I feel as if they're competent? Are they sharing things that are relevant to myself? Right. But getting that outreach done on a place like LinkedIn, you're curating a network of people around you who now fit that profile of people you want to talk to. But I think some of the exercise for everyone too is like go audit your social media, right? Like your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, your whatever it is they're using. And if you actually go do a deep dive there is one, how many followers do you have? But two, what percent of those followers actually fit in your target, right? Your target messenger, your target customer, right? And if they're so far off that, you need to start reshaping the audience you have around you because if your audience, even if they're interested and they're not actually the right fit for you, it's not a worthwhile audience to go have. So I think you have that conversion, right? That actual true value of your audience is how many connections do you have? How many followers do you have? Multiplied by percentage of how these people actually fit into your business and life.
That is such a great point. And I'm just thinking back to like my own profile. And I know if I were to go sort that, more than 50% of my connections on LinkedIn, they're other real estate capital raisers, right? Because we're all just like in the same like circle of, we're all just talking about the same stuff and connecting with each other. And so like thinking about that for myself, it's like, yeah, my target avatar is not other real estate capital raisers. Yet that is the majority of my connections. And so that's a very good point.
Yeah, so it's kind of figuring out like what content you want to go share and who you attract and making sure that you actually have something you can go offer those people to that you're attracting, right? And if you can't, if they're not a fit for you, it's starting to reshape how you think and how you operate to be a good fit for, what it is you want to go attract.
Absolutely.
So cool. No, I definitely love I think a lot of this too just goes to productivity, right? Like how do you be really productive at scale? I think whether it be you want to work less hours or whether you want to be more efficient or focus on other things, I think a lot of people in this business want to go do different types of projects. They want to go do different things, be involved in different areas and both, the in versus on the business. So in your world, how do you think of that, right? Working in the business, like actually doing the work versus working on the business?
So I've been spending way too much time inside the business, and I've been trying to focus a lot of my efforts in the last few months on how can I replace myself? How can I outsource? How can I delegate? Because I need to be the visionary and the leader. I should not be doing the individual tasks within the business. And that's how I'm going to grow. The way I think about it is I'm not really an expert or great at any of the things involved. My real expertise and what I'm good at is leadership and vision. And I need to be doing that. I need to be progressing the business forward, not spending my time doing all the little tasks inside of the business. So I use the delegate and elevate thing from I forgot what the EOS marketing online thing for entrepreneurs. And it's essentially like a quadrant where you write down all the tasks that you don't like to do, that you're not good at, and then you try to figure out how to get them off your plate and delegate them. So I've been going through that process quite a lot. A lot of my tasks can be automated and delegated to people like virtual assistants or using, automations and stuff like that. The other portion of it can't be, because this is a relationship business and there are a lot of things that require my particular expertise that I've been building over the years to do. And so that's going to be the trickiest part, is figuring out how do I replace myself for the things that require relationships and my personal expertise. That's something I've been struggling with.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm in a similar spot as well. I think the more you can get off your plate of things you don't have to go do, the more time you actually spend in doing those tasks, right? And that's where it really shifts, is how much your time is spent doing things that are truly meaningful, right? And not scalable, and how much your time can be spent, doing things that are scalable, but you're just not at a place to go delegate them, right? I think people have, my biggest block is probably the ability of going to properly delegate and train, right? It's a big lift. I think people either have the gap, whether it be the control piece of it, the fearfulness of spending to go bring in certain people, or they just don't have the systems or process in place to go actually hand that work off. So I think anyone listening to this, if you're trying to build something out, right, document your process of doing it, right? And just from the start, as you're doing it, it'll be a few steps better to work in doing it, but it'll be a lot easier than going back and doing that entire process all over again.
It's a really good point. And I actually recently found this AI software thing. It's called Scribe. I think you can Google it and find it. I have no idea what the website is, but it essentially records your screen. You go through a process, like you go into your CRM, we use ActiveCampaign, and you set up an email automation sequence, and it will literally record with screenshots the step-by-step instructions. And then you can go in later and edit them. And so I actually did that and then sent it to my virtual assistant. I said, hey, can you go set up all the deal automations? We have a lot of them for our next offering. And she was able to go through and do it in just a few hours, which was awesome. So that's a little tip to use the Scribe software.
Cool. Well, I know we're coming up on time here as well, but any kind of final words on your end, whether it be on the digital nomad life, the productivity side of it, or just someone who's looking to go get into this space from the corporate world?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people have been getting into this space lately. If you're trying to become an operator, you need to realize it's like a lot of work. But also, if you're trying to be an allocator, it's like capital raising's not easy either. You can join masterminds. I know Sam's got one. I do some coaching as well. But there's a lot of resources out there, and it really comes down to, first, you need to figure out what you actually want and then put together a real roadmap, like all the way back down to like, what are you going to do today to do it? It's pretty simple. It's kind of like the process of planning for life and just like a typical goal setting process. But if you really want to do something, like, just realize there's going to be a valley of despair. You're going to have to go through a period where you're not making any money, and then come out the other side of it. And it's a struggle, but it is absolutely possible. I've done it, Sam's done it, and it's something that if you're really passionate about, go do it. If not, just be a limited partner and invest passively.
Cool. Elijah, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sam.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fully Funded Show. If you enjoyed today's insights, hit follow, share with your investing pals, and drop us a review. Connect with us on social media for bonus content. Your success is our mission. Keep those funds flowing. See you next time.